It was a dark and stormy night when Emily decided to have a solo game night in her cozy apartment. With a cup of hot cocoa in hand and her favorite horror game loaded on her console, she settled onto the couch, ready for an evening of thrills and chills. As she delved deeper into the game, the atmosphere grew tense, and Emily found herself on the edge of her seat, her heart racing with every creak of the floorboards and flicker of the lights. But just as she was about to reach the climax of the game, she heard a faint scratching sound coming from the hallway. At first, Emily dismissed it as her imagination running wild, but as the sound grew louder, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. With trembling hands, she paused the game and crept towards the hallway, her pulse pounding in her ears. The scratching grew louder and more frantic, echoing through the empty apartment like the claws of some unseen creature. Emily's mind raced with fear as she tried to rationalize the noise, but deep down, she knew that something was terribly wrong. Summoning all her courage, Emily flung open the door to the hallway, expecting to confront whatever horror lurked within. But to her surprise, the hallway was empty, bathed in the dim glow of the flickering lights. Just as she was about to breathe a sigh of relief, a sudden gust of wind extinguished the lights, plunging the apartment into darkness. Panic surged through Emily's veins as she fumbled for her phone, the only source of light in the darkness. As she illuminated the hallway with the soft glow of her phone's flashlight, Emily caught a glimpse of something moving in the shadows. It was a figure, tall and menacing, with glowing eyes that pierced through the darkness like burning coals. Frozen with terror, Emily watched as the figure drew closer, its footsteps echoing through the silent apartment like the tolling of a death knell. With nowhere left to run, she braced herself for the inevitable confrontation, her mind reeling with visions of the horrors that awaited her. But just as the figure reached out to touch her, Emily jolted awake, her heart pounding in her chest. It had all been a nightmare, a twisted figment of her imagination brought on by the intensity of the game. As she took a deep breath and glanced around the empty apartment, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching her, lurking in the shadows just beyond her reach. And as she returned to her game, she couldn't help but wonder if the horrors she had faced were truly confined to the realm of her dreams.
As the clock struck midnight, Mark found himself walking home alone from a late-night shift. The streets were deserted, and an eerie silence hung in the air, broken only by the sound of his footsteps echoing off the pavement. Little did he know, something sinister lurked in the shadows behind him. With every step he took, Mark couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. A cold chill ran down his spine as he glanced over his shoulder, but there was nothing there. Just the empty street, bathed in the dim glow of the streetlights. Brushing off his unease as paranoia, Mark quickened his pace, eager to reach the safety of his apartment. But no matter how fast he walked, he could still feel the presence behind him, like a shadow looming ever closer. Every time he dared to look back, the street remained empty, but Mark knew better. He could sense it, lurking just beyond his line of sight, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. With each passing moment, his fear grew, gnawing at the edges of his sanity. As he approached his apartment building, Mark's heart pounded in his chest. He knew he had to face whatever horror awaited him, but he couldn't bring himself to turn around and confront it head-on. Instead, he fumbled for his keys, his hands shaking with fear. With a trembling hand, Mark unlocked the door and stepped inside, his heart racing with anticipation. But as he closed the door behind him, he heard a faint whisper from the darkness behind him.
Behind you.
Turning slowly, he came face to face with the source of his terror. Standing in the shadows, bathed in the pale moonlight, was a figure unlike anything he had ever seen. Its eyes gleamed with malevolence, and its twisted grin sent shivers down his spine. Frozen with fear, Mark could only watch as the figure stepped forward, its footsteps echoing through the silent hallway. In that moment, he knew that his nightmare was far from over. And as the figure drew closer, its outstretched hand reaching for him, Mark realized that some terrors never truly fade away.